The Eagles secondary is one that was ripped to shreds by injury last year, and that's sort of why we let the team off the hook for ranking 25th in interceptions and in the bottom 3 for passing yards allowed. But we're now 2 games into the regular season, and the Eagles have already given up 680 yards against the pass, having just played Washington and fallen to a heartbreaking loss to Atlanta. It's clear that the cornerbacks are struggling. The secondary once again is struggling. The Eagles just can't seem to get it right. But what is the reason? And with Jalen Ramsey on the trade block, should this be an option they're exploring? Is it down to the players, the scheme, or perhaps a bit of both? And we're going to take a deep dive into each of the Eagles' outside cornerbacks, so Avonte Maddox gets a pass for this one. My name is Liam Jenkins, and this is an episode of Eagles Film Room. Before we get into it though guys, make sure you leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. It would mean the absolute world to all of us here at Philly Sports Network, and don't forget to drop your comments down below letting us know what you think of today's video. We would love for you to join one of the fastest growing Philadelphia sports communities online, so drop your thoughts down below and let's start the discussion. And as always, if you're not already doing so, you can catch mine and all of our writers' work over at phillysportsnetwork.com for your daily dose of Philadelphia sports coverage. Let's start off with Ronald Darby, a man who played the majority of cornerback snaps for the Eagles and allowed 115 passing yards by himself, garnering the 4th worst grade in the NFL according to Pro Football Focus. Was it all Darby's fault or was it schematic? Let's take a look at one of the deeper burns of the day. You can see him here lined up on the outside against Calvin Ridley, and what you're going to see is a safety over the middle, but they want to bracket Julio Jones on the other side. So you see the safety at the top drop back, and at that point, if you focus at the top of the field, Ronald Douglas is doing his job, everything's perfect. But on this side, Andrew Sendejo's flat-footed, and that allows a monstrous window for the ball to creep into the end zone and a huge touchdown for number 18. If we compare that to this play, although it's a slightly different layout, the principles are the same. Darby's in man coverage, only this time he's going to have help over the top from a safety, and look at the difference it makes when someone picks up that route underneath and can break up a pass in the end zone. That's what should happen, and I think honestly in this scheme, Darby needs that confidence that there is help over the top, because there are too many instances like this, and this is a great adjustment by the receiver. Matt Ryan is forced out of the pocket here. Darby ends up stopping dead in his tracks, and the receiver blows by, makes the adjustment, and Ryan can just dink it over the top. That should have been a touchdown. Darby just not showing the awareness needed there to make a play. And maybe it is the ACL tear, maybe it's that he didn't have all preseason, but he just looks a little bit rigid in movement, and again caught flat-footed there, this time by Hardy, who beats him down deep on a nice little double move, and there's just nothing Darby can do, but that one falls incomplete, and he gets away with murder again, and the 3rd time is the charm, so they say. He was burned for a huge completion, and the main culprit again was just sticky feet. He ends up planting his feet, being burned to the outside, and that's a Julio Jones doing Julio Jones things level moment. There's not much anyone can do, but he could have played it a bit better earlier on in the route, and it's something we're seeing just a little bit too much. If you look at it closely, he's just kind of moving his whole body at once. There's not much fluidity. He's clanging into Jones, and at that point he's fighting a losing battle. I think we can all agree that is a heroic bit of effort from Julio Jones. The problem I've got with Darby though is that he just seems a bit too conservative. He gets bullied off of this route here. The receiver fakes outside and Darby takes a step away, and look at the opening it creates. The ball never actually found the receiver or was targeted, but it's the principle. It just seems to be an overriding sense of caution in his play right now. And here's an example against Atlanta. He's defending a simple comeback route. Watch this. He's trying to take away the boundary, but he's facing directly infield, and he's let the receiver already almost get a step on him behind. There's no way he's keeping in line with that wide out, and look at the space Matt Ryan would have to throw that ball into. Again, it wasn't targeted, and he got away with one. And here is another example. This is off coverage again. Same sort of thing. He's trying to take away the boundary. Zone coverage, there's no help over the top. And he's angling his body infield to do that. He wants to funnel the play inside, but with no help over the top here, what Ronald Darby has to do is adapt, and he doesn't turn upfield with the receiver. If you look at the safety in the middle of the field, he's turned away. Darby is on his own. It's 1v1, and he gets absolutely toasted because he's flat-footed. There's no momentum being generated or going back with the receiver. And here, away from the ball, it's in off coverage again. He's defending a simple out route here. All he's got to do is keep that receiver away from the boundary. His eyes are infield, his hips are pointing towards the quarterback, but he loses his man. He's not even looking at the receiver. He's focusing on where the ball is going, and Matt Ryan will punish you all day for that. This is the most concerning thing, because the Eagles play so far off the ball, and I mean 8 to 10 yards nearly every play. There's a lot of passes that come underneath. The Giants and the Packers started to do this against them, and just about every other team has caught on, and Ronald Darby struggles in keeping plays ahead and tackling downhill. That should not have happened right there. I made a video earlier this offseason saying the Eagles' worst move of the entire offseason was bringing him back, and I got clowned for it. I got absolutely ruined, and it's not because it's a bad move, it's because in comparison to the rest of them, it didn't make sense. The 25-year-old is quick, he's athletic, he's sticky in coverage. We're seeing that when he's tasked in man and press. We saw it just there on that pass breakup, and you'll see another example here against Atlanta. He turns to run with the receiver here, realizes the object of the route, spots the ball over his shoulder, turns in and picks off a vastly underthrown ball. Great awareness, great decision, great positioning. There's not much to dislike about that play, but that's not the thing that Darby's being asked to do time and time again here. It's very few and far between he's asked to close on routes. He doesn't have the ball skills to make the most of when he does. You can see it here. He comes down, that should be a pick, the ball is in his chest, and it ultimately isn't. This is a player that I think in the right situation is excellent, but this isn't it. The Eagles run a scheme where so much comes underneath, and he has to tackle, and he has to be light on his feet, and he has to anticipate double moves and that sort of thing, and he's not that kind of corner. He's someone that needs to thrive at the line of scrimmage, that needs to play bail technique, that needs to play trail technique, run with his receivers and give them a walk forward. Get sticky, get hands on, disrupt the route. That's where he is at his best. We see it time and time again in games, but he's not being asked to do that right now, and the result, I think, is someone that is a bit whimsy, someone that can't tackle as successfully as the other corners on this team, and someone that, as of right now, isn't providing the skill set that Jim Schwartz needs. And I'm not trying to slander Ronald Darby. I think he's very good. Maybe there is an overhanging problem with the ACL. Maybe he doesn't have that confidence in his leg that he used to. I don't know. But let's compare this, just for argument's sake, to Sidney Jones and Ronald Douglas so you can understand what I'm trying to say here. Take this play for example, okay? This is a pick route. The idea is that the receiver takes Sidney Jones off the play and off coverage. You've got a nice window underneath. But look at the eyes of Jones. He's staring at Ryan. He knows where that ball's going. Immediately gets past the receiver, comes downhill, makes a big hit. You do not see that from Ronald Darby. Jones thrives in these situations where he's able to read the play and come downhill. Look at this one against Washington, okay? Again, it's off coverage. He's about 10 yards off the ball, playing zone. He sits here because he knows there is a nice triangle of Eagles players around him. That's not his responsibility. He keeps his head up, moves downfield, stops, drops and rolls. It's a nice tackle. His awareness is just on another level to Darby's right now. How many communication breakdowns have we seen from Ronald Darby where he has to come down deep field to help and he doesn't do it? Jones does. Here, Sidney Jones knows that he's got a safety and a dropping linebacker, so he turns back around, comes downhill and picks up the running back and makes a tackle. Again, name me a time you've seen Ronald Darby make a play like that, because I haven't. We go back to this triangle. The Redskins, for some reason or other, run 4 comeback routes and Sidney Jones passes it off, comes back downhill. Why? He knows where his teammates are. He knows what the play call is. And I'm not saying that Ronald Darby doesn't, but you do not see this sort of thing where Jones can burst downhill, where Douglas can burst downhill and make a play on the ball. You see a lot of hesitance, a lot of caution from Ronald Douglas. Look at the hustle here from Sidney Jones. Gets off his block, rolls around and brings down a running back for a huge tackle on a big drive. But what about in press coverage? Well, he thrives there as well. He played a little bit of slot against Washington, positions himself well and just understands where he needs to be. We'll slow this one down, have another look at this. He's perched, he's ready. He knows he's not exactly the most sizable cornerback, but he can get his hands in there and jar that ball away. But this is the play that really gets to me. It's on Twitter. I shared it earlier. This is against Julio Jones. Press coverage. Feels his way down the route tree all the way through the stem. Constant contact, sustaining it all the way. That is one of the best receivers in the NFL. That is Sidney Jones, a corner that a lot of people are overlooking here. He's patient. He initiates contact. He stays through it despite Julio giving him everything he can. A couple of twitches aren't enough to create a throwing lane. Jones is there every single step of the way. And you know what? His interception may have been a bit of luck, but the placement and the positioning of Jones here was just enough to get it done. It was one of those 50-50 luck balls. Every cornerback's going to get them, but I think that's a reward for his hard work. That's the difference to me between Sidney Jones and Ronald Darby. But how does Rasul Douglas factor into this? How does the guy that's finally getting playing time add into all this discussion? Because he's very much a different cornerback here. You've got Ronald Darby, who specialises in being sticky in coverage. Jones is very well rounded. To me, Rasul Douglas is a dinner cornerback, and he's asked here to press at the line, gets beat. He's got help over the top from a safety and underneath from a linebacker. Not the end of the world. He's not someone ideally you want to see pressing all the time, but where Douglas thrives is disrupting the timing of the route. So he initiates contact there, and is that just enough so that Ryan's ball is a little bit off, that Julio can't quite get to that point in time? It's debatable. The ball was underthrown. But where you see Douglas really thrive is outside of press coverage, if he can get to the catch point at the very top of a route. But here he is in press again, and look at that, sustains contact all the way through. That's a big boy play. You don't see that again from Ronald Darby, someone that's willing to get down low, get his hands on a receiver, and just try and physically impose your will on one of the best in the game. He avoids the brush off, gets his hand over the top, keeps his head up. He likes getting aggressive, and we're seeing a new side to Rasul Douglas over these last couple of years. Here's another one, an incompletion on Julio Jones. Reads it perfectly, keeps his head up. Just watch the eyes here of Douglas. Look at the angle of his body. It's zone coverage again. He wants to take away that right-hand side of the field. Even when breaking on the route, he's doing so keeping his head up, looking into the backfield and for the ball, and as a result can make a play. He's a dinner cornerback. That's why he led the team with 3 interceptions last year, despite barely getting any. Now, what is the solution for this? What am I saying with all this analysis? Because all we've got is a very well-rounded corner in Jones, a ball-hawk in Rasul Douglas, and someone that's struggling with everything else to do with him that isn't through the stem of the route or sticking in press in Ronald Darby. Look at Rasul Douglas here. He senses that. He knows he's in zone, comes down, makes a play, whiffs on the tackle. It's a bad angle. We'll give him that. It's not very often you do see that from Rasul Douglas, but look at this as a willing run defender. Into the lane, makes a tackle. He has his value there as a downhill corner, and that's what this scheme needs, and that's why I was against Ronald Darby being re-signed, because he doesn't fit the bill. That's why Jalen Mills has been a starter for so long, because yes, he gets picked apart and thrown underneath, but he can make tackles. He comes down and hits and makes plays. But what do the Eagles need? Firstly, they've got to adapt the scheme, because I think they're really doing an injustice here. It's not so much getting guys on the line and pressing, but it's giving them help, giving them a lifeline. Look at this play against Washington. Ronald Darby at the top of your screen is asked to cover the curl and the flat here. Does so well, reads the ball, comes back, but that's where the chunk yards are coming from. That's why you've got quarterbacks putting up 300-yard games when they really shouldn't be. And I'm not just talking this year, I'm talking last year, because the defensive line cannot get pressure when the cornerbacks are just so far away from the ball. They can't disrupt the timing of the routes. All you're doing is giving vanilla offenses a chance to take checkdowns, or at least was the case against Washington. Like, look at this. Case Keenum has all the time in the world to just play a zone-breaking pass, and that's all as an offensive coordinator you could want. Now, against the Falcons, I think Jim Schwartz called one hell of a game. Problem was that Ronald Darby again showed communication breakdowns. Like, look at this play against the Redskins. It's a deep touchdown from Terry McLaurin that burns Rasul Douglas, and then Douglas a lot of criticism when it wasn't even his fault. How do I know that it wasn't his fault? Let's rewind this and watch the play back. Look at the angle Douglas takes. He's not even lined up in press or man here against his receiver. He's angling towards the quarterback. He's playing bail coverage. He's not even looking at the receiver, because the idea is there's help underneath. He's funneling the play inside, and Darby's going to drop back and pick up underneath. He doesn't. Ronald Darby goes shallow, and look at the window it opens up. There's only so much here that Rasul Douglas can do, and Terry McLaurin, a guy that runs a 4.3-yard dash here, should just absolutely be respected, and that was one of the communication breakdowns. And there are plays like this. It's an RPO. Nigel Bradham falls for the run and plays it, comes down shallow, and because Ronald Darby is playing so far off, look at the space Matt Ryan has. I think even I could make that pass, and that's purely schematic. There's nothing Ronald Darby can do. He's being asked to play that far away from the ball, and that's a result of it. The same way on that side of the ball, Sidney Jones, it's an underneath route. What more can you do? You're trying to play prevent defense. That's how this works, to try and buy the front forward time. But the bottom line is it's not happening anymore. On this play, again, it's a deep route. This should have been a completion. It wasn't. It comes down to communication and what is becoming an if this then that defense. If you take a look at this play, the Redskins move a receiver out, and what this should signify is that Ronald Darby is now going to have to drop deep, because Rodney McLeod is going to come down and play number 10. He signals it. He's coming down in the flat to stop, which leaves Ronald Darby to play down deep where he needs to, because he's gonna get a lot of attention and he doesn't get down deep quick enough, and that right there should have been a completion, should have been a touchdown. It wasn't, but other quarterbacks will put that away. Now, will Jalen Ramsey fix that? I don't think so, because he's still going to be playing the same style of defense. He's versatile, he can play at the press, he's great at press, in fact at elite just about all over the field, but one cornerback in this scheme will not fix the defensive shortcomings. I think Schwartz called one hell of a game against Atlanta, but the fact is you've got three very different styles of cornerback, which is why we've got a cornerback by committee approach, and Ronald Darby is not in a position to do what's being asked of him in particular right now. I think what needs to happen first is some schematic adjustment from Jim Schwartz. You've got to find a way for the corners to disrupt those routes so that the pass rush can have time to get home. They're getting all the pressures in the world, no hits, no sacks, because the ball is coming out so quickly. Schwartz has to do something here. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not a defensive coordinator. If you think you know, let me know, guys, down in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. What do you think? Do the Eagles need a new cornerback? Do they need to change their defense up? What is the issue with this secondary? Because to me, it's a little from column A, a little from column B, and a little from column C. Certainly won't fix that, with column C being Jalen Ramsey. But from myself, Liam Jenkins, if you have enjoyed this, follow me on Twitter at Liam Jenkins PSN. I'll see you soon.